Hey guys, I've got some awesome stuff for you. This is an Excel tutorial. I've actually got 12 tips for you. Top 10 tips seem to be what everybody looks for, but I've got 12 of them for you. And this is a really powerful program, and everybody's told me it's really powerful, but I've never really understood what that meant because I wasn't ever really using it. So here are a bunch of tips that I have learned that are really powerful for the average user, for the typical guy, not necessarily somebody who's programming with it, but somebody who's using it to make, I don't know, graphs or charts and other things like that, and just trying to manipulate basic data. So here we go. We're going to check this out, and you're going to love it. I know you are. We're going to go over some basic stuff, but then we're going to get some a little more advanced. Anyway, all right, here we go. Okay, so tip number one, you can drag patterns. So that means things like months. You can drag months. There we go. That's pretty nice. Or let's say you have three, six, yeah, that looks good. So you can drag out a pattern of numbers, and that's fine. You can also drag out two different patterns of numbers at the same time. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty nice. So that's a pretty simple one that hopefully everybody knows how to do, but just in case you didn't, there it is. Anyway, okay, so let's say you want to do something with this data. Let's say first you want to just select data. You know, you can do what we've all been taught, use your mouse and drag, but sometimes that gets to be a pain in the butt, especially if you have a lot of data and you have to drags on. So what we can do is you can say Shift, hold down the Shift key, and then press arrow. And that will allow you to select whatever data you're holding there. That doesn't seem that powerful, you may say. Well, add the Control key. So Control Shift down arrow. Now it fills all the data that's in that area. That's pretty powerful. So if I have a list of like, you know, I did a thermal experiment where I had 20,000 data points. I didn't know about this at that time, and I had to go through and drag it all by mouse. But now I know. You Control Shift down arrow, it would have selected the whole thing. Control Shift right arrow, and it will fill the whole data point or the whole data set that way. Okay, something else is Control asterisk fills all the data within that block. It doesn't matter where you are in there, Control asterisk will fill it all. So now you want to do something with this data. Let's see. You could go ahead and let's sum it, but I don't want to sum 1 through 3. That seems kind of silly, so I'm going to put a name to this. And before we put a name to that, let's hit Control G. Now this may not seem like a very important window, but what this window will show you are all the variables that we've created, which we haven't created any yet. But let's go ahead and say, all right, our Control asterisk, and then we'll come up to Formulas, Create from Selection, and now we have top row and left column, create values from these guys. And what that will do is that will name these values from the top row as well as the row from this column. So let's go ahead and hit OK. Doesn't seem like anything happened, but let's hit that Control G again, and there we go. Now we see all of our variables are there. So let's try using them. If we go ahead and click in here, we see in our name box nothing really has changed, but if we select all the data in that column, we now see it's called January. Select it all in that row, it's now called Adam. So if we want to sum January, all we have to do is hit equals to get into our equation, say sum, and something else is this will start to try to guess what it is that you're doing. If you hit enter, it's not going to fill that in for you, and it's a big pain. It made me angry for a long time. What you need to do is hit tab. If you hit tab, it will select it for you. Okay, now let's say we want to sum January, and look, there it is. There's January right there. Hit tab, and now it's in there. You don't even have to close the parentheses. It'll automatically fill that in for you. Nice. Now let's average it. So equals average, tab, January, tab, enter. We're done. Nice. Okay, so now let's use our little trick here, drag it. Look at that. So what we've learned here is this value is an absolute variable, so you can't drag it. So that brings us to our next tip. And this is tip number, gosh, I haven't been telling you which tip numbers these are. Well, that's okay. This is called indirect. Tip number something. Indirect. This is a great function. Now click on January. And when you hit enter in here, it's going to get mad at you because for some reason it deletes that other parenthesis, but it's saying, hey, you want us to add this parenthesis in there? Say, yeah, okay, that's cool. So then let's come back in here, say indirect, tab, January. I'll add that parenthesis in there just for fun. And there we go. Now we have the same numbers, but they are referencing this cell, which is then referencing this data. So because it's referencing the cell and not the variable January, this will update as we drag it across. So we drag it across, and boom, it updates all the data. Nice. Okay, so now let's say we want to make an equation out of this. So we'll say let's subtract the sum or the average from the sum. All right, normally you'd be like, well, all right, I'll take the sum, or I'll hit equals sum minus average. You're done, right? Well, maybe you don't want to have all these in here. Maybe this is a whole bunch of little steps and this is the final step you want, but you don't want to have these all in your spreadsheet. So what you want to do to fix that is come up to this guy. Once you get this super equation, I know this is a single equation, but a super equation, you have a whole bunch of stuff in there working, then you can fill these cell numbers in with the actual information from these guys. So copy that, hit enter so it doesn't mess it up. Come back down here and replace B6 with that. There you go. We can do that with the average too. Come up here, control copy, hit enter, come down and replace B7 with the average. Nice. Now this guy is actually referencing the data up here and not these guys, and you can get rid of them. Now similarly, because we're using the indirect guy here, you can drag this across and that works. Awesome. Okay, one more thing about variables is, let's say we wanted to create a static variable of 1600 RPMs. Right now up here in the name box it says B12. You know, this stuff up here, if you drag this out, it's all January and whatever, and we saw how we made that from our create from selection. But let's say I just want to make a single thing a variable. I want to do it fast. I don't want to mess with all the boxes and everything. Easy. Come up to the name box, say fan speed. Now notice for the space you do have to put an underscore. But now you'll see that in the name box that's B11 fan speed. Nice. So now that's named. So now let's do something with that. Let's say equals fan, and there it is, fan speed, tab, divided by 2. And there's half of our fan speed using that variable. So now our equations are even more readable, which is nice. But let's say for some reason you want to get rid of this. And maybe you don't remember what this is, or you don't want to look at the cells around it. Then you go up to your name manager, and this will show you all of your variables, and we can find that fan speed and we can delete it. Alright, so it deleted that name, so now it's back to B12 like it was. But then you'll see this little equation that we created with fan speed is still referencing that previous name, not the cell itself. So that's something to watch out for. Okay, so that's this guy, this equation. Finally, let's say we want to total up these guys. Let's make another sum. Hit tab. And this time we'll do the rows. So atom. Nice. Okay, but we know better than that. We want indirect. We'll click the cell that atom is. Now we could drag those down. Very nice. But let's say this is a lot of data. You don't want to drag that down all the way. So how do we mess with that? How do we fix that? Come up here And when you highlight this, you got this square down here that you normally grab. Double click. 1, 2. And there you go. It autofills the length of this data. Super fast. Nice. So now let's do one more little thing here. This is our tip number, what is this? Here we go. We're up to tip 11. Look at that. This is so fast. Okay, so equals. If, we'll do a logical statement here. We'll look at this data. And we'll hit tab. So now it knows we want to use this if statement. It gives you a little idea here as to what it's looking for, but I got something even better. Here's this little FX box. Look at that. Here we go. We've got windows that are going to help you work through it and in real time analyze what's going on. So we're going to say, all right, the logical test is I want to see if this is greater than or less than 50. So I'm going to select that data, and if that's greater than 50, and then hit tab, and it will go to the next window. Look at that. It's already telling me that's false. It's not greater than 50. Well, that's fine. So if it's true, then I am bigger than 50. Nice. Tab. And if it's false, then I'm not. Sad. Okay, tab. And it autofills it, and there you go. That's the result at the end. Very nice. So now let's fill that through. Double click. And there we go. We now have all those guys lined up. Now let's say something's going wrong. This equation is not doing what it's supposed to do. This is the final tip, tip number 12. This nice little guy under the Formulas tab is called Evaluate Formula. Come in here, and here's your formula. And as you evaluate, it steps through the process. So we're looking right here. It underlines what it's about, what the next step is, J3, which is that value. It's going to evaluate it. What is in there? Hit it. 56. Nice. 56 is in there. 56 is greater than 50, so it's going to evaluate that. True. So now it's going to evaluate the whole function. I am bigger than 50. Restart. So now you can step through each of those guys and see where the problems are in your equations. Alright, well that's my tips and tricks. There's going to be more, but I thought that would be a good way to get started. Thanks for watching.